Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Beer Mile Podcast. We're sitting here in beautiful Silverton, Colorado, with Justin. I guess I should have asked your name before. Grunewald or Grunewald? Grunewald?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. You are racing tomorrow. You're racing a 60-kilometer race in preparation for the UTMB 100K in a couple of weeks. So how are you feeling going into tomorrow's race?
Honestly, really good. I think stuff's kind of clicked in training and have never felt better than the last month or so. So I'm excited. Tomorrow's more of a walkthrough, run with a full pack, like rain gear, Garmin inReach, like just the whole big backpack on your back, but with the Ultra Aspire vest. But I'm excited. And tomorrow's just more for fun, and it's a laid back, chill race. And Amanda and I have been looking for a reason to come to Silverton, and we found it.
That's perfect. What does competition look like? I didn't look up beforehand. How big is this race? What sort of caliber of athletes come to this one?
I honestly have no clue.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah, I actually am super excited because I downloaded the course on my watch because I've taken wrong turns at races. Yeah. So it'll beep at me if I go off course. But I know there's a 100-mile that started a couple hours ago, then a 100K tomorrow morning, then the 60K. It doesn't look huge. It's gone on, I think, for 3 or 4 years. The Golden one, Dirty 30 has a race in Golden, and then the race here. I know the Golden one's always competitive because Rocky Mountain Runners, they're just a bunch of kids and middle-aged people, and like they just have a ton of talent. So if any of those guys show up, it'll be a good race, but you just never know.
And I saw today you ran for like an hour 40 ahead of it. So it seems like you're training through this to some extent in prep for the big event.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amanda and I both ran Speed Go 2 weeks ago. I ran the short course, but the day before I went out with Tyler Green, who is coming off his second place at Western, and he's like, "You want to go for a jog?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm racing tomorrow." And it turned into like a 4.5 hour hike, climb, scramble, lost. I think we did like 4 or 5K of vert. And I'm like, probably feel that one tomorrow. But it's like this beautiful day, and I dearly love Tyler. So to get to spend 4.5 hours in the mountains with him, I'd like skip the race the next day. And that's kind of my mentality. Like Amanda and I had her mom to babysit, and we got to go spend 2 hours in Silverton. So sure, it might like make my race 2% worse tomorrow, but so might anything else in the world.
Exactly. Very true. And you can never predict how your body's going to feel anyway.
Right. And if you're happy going in, I think it'll make it 2% better.
Exactly. Yeah. And so for listeners who maybe aren't familiar with you, you're a physician, pro runner for Rabbit and Ultra as well as the chair of the Brave Like Gabe Foundation. So how has training been going, balancing all this? You travel back to Minneapolis to work your shifts. You're out in Boulder. How prepared are you feeling for, well, specifically the CCC, I guess, here in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. Weirdly, I've gotten to this happy place of running in mid-June where I was feeling a lot of stress. I'm like, I'm aging. My clock is running out. I need to win every race. I need to break every course record. And then that's like not the reason, aside from maybe Jim Walmsley, who is superhuman, talented, phenomenal, and can run 200-mile weeks. But aside from him, no one, and he doesn't even need to feel that pressure. Like, he's just great. But you shouldn't be doing it for those reasons. And Gabriel passed away June 11th. Her birthday's June 25th. And it was this weird 14-day period where I just came to peace with everything. And Amanda's like, "What's your goal for CCC?" And I'm like, "Just hang out in like the top 20 for 80K and then pick people off." And she's like, "You gotta be kidding. Like, if you're outside of like the top 5, you're jogging." I'm like, it's okay to jog. Because I realized, looking back at all my races that have been long, like Black Canyon, I got to, I think 20 miles, I was probably in 20th place. At 40 miles, I was picking people off like they were dying on the side of the road. Yep. And I think I moved up into 3rd place at 45 miles. And then my GI track went to hell and stopped for like an hour. But I was just getting too excited between like mile 40 and 45 when everyone's coming back.
Right.
And just running a little harder than I needed to. Whereas if I would have just kept that 100K shuffle, I could have won or finished second or whatever could have happened.
Right.
But in these races, it's all, as you'll find out at Pikes Peak,
Yeah.
you got to gauge everything in. Like a road marathon, you want to go run 5:10, 5:20 mile for 26 miles. Here, you run a 15-minute mile. That might be the fastest mile out of anyone in the field. But as soon as you go lactic or the point of no return, it's over.
Right. It is so different. And like, it's funny, like doing a marathon, Pikes Peak Marathon, I'm like, I'm going to be out there for probably double the time that I am for the road marathon. And it is so weird. You're going to run some 15-minute miles at the top and then maybe blitz some 5:30s on the way down. It's going to be all over the place.
Or 4:30s with your speed.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see. We'll see if I can.
I hope so, yeah.
I'm hoping I can gain it on the downhill because I don't think I can climb like some of those guys. But so I guess going back a little bit then, a few years, getting into trail and mountain running, like was that part of your growing up at all, or was that something you kind of found later in life and really got into in these past couple of years?
Yeah, it's like weird or not weird, but I was married, or I don't say was, like I am married to Gabrielle. She passed away.
Right,
I don't think that like Amanda's my partner now. I plan to marry her, like all that stuff aside. Sorry, big announcement to Amanda. But no, so Gabrielle was a track athlete. I was in medical school and residency, and to like go spend 5 hours on the trail isn't going to happen very often, especially in Minneapolis. And I loved running with her. Like, so we just go hammer short stuff on the track, 400s, miles, 100s. And we kind of had this agreement that her last hurrah was going to be 2020, like health willing, all that stuff. She'd gotten fourth at the 2012 trials, just missed the team. 2016, she made the final with a cantaloupe-sized tumor in her liver that we didn't know about, and then had this big surgery. But the goal was give 2020 hell, and then all at 35 start my trail career. I like dabbled in it before then, ran some like 50Ks, did some stuff, but I really, in a different scenario, would have been on the trails 15 years ago, but I wouldn't ever give back a meter I ran with Gabriel on the track to go get time in the mountains. But now I get to experience it, and it's a little more new. And I think my trail legs are a little younger and a little fresher. So like not clearly. I have a lot of speed from her kicking my butt around the track.
Exactly.
And that helps on descents.
Absolutely.
And I love climbing too, so it's all fun now.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have speed. If you want to run fast on any distance, you got to have speed. And so that's huge. And then, maybe the little bit of freshness in the legs. I mean, you were still, how much were you running during med school? Like miles per week? Were you still running a
From
good
0
chunk?
to 100.
Okay. A little roller coaster action going on. Yeah.
That's probably the highest rate of DNFing races in my lifetime.
I can only imagine. So in 2020 specifically, you set a ton of FKTs. I was looking at the Fast Stone Time website a little bit, and I think you have like 24 on there now, which is pretty nuts. Amanda has 4 of them as well. And so I guess, was that motivation partly that you were kind of newer getting into trail running, as well as then the pandemic? Because I think you were also signed up for a couple of races that maybe didn't happen too. So what kind of motivated you to switch from the racing to, I'm going to just go out there and crush some FKTs every other week? Yeah,
2020 was really a year I hope to hammer like a 50K or 100K every other month, like as long as your body allows it, and just learn the sport. And that didn't happen because of the pandemic. And a lot of it came down to, like, I drive Amanda kind of crazy, but some of it was boredom. Some of it was like assholism. I'd call like Andy Wacker. I've never met him, I don't think, but we like are both in Boulder a lot. He's a great mountain runner.
Yeah.
But like he takes like all my FKTs. But I was running with a couple friends one morning. We were talking about FKTs and junk. And there's this one that's a mile uphill.
Okay.
It's called Lickskillet Road.
Lickskillet, okay.
It's absolutely miserable. So Kyle Pietari has the downhill. You should go for it. It's like 339.
Holy moly. What's the elevation drop in that?
It's the highest grade mile in America, I think, for a road.
Okay.
But it's like down 900 feet.
Okay.
So
that's a quad killer.
Yeah.
But
I ran, after I did the uphill, I think I ran like 346 on the downhill. So you could totally crush it.
We'll see. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
You
That's
don't
moving
walk
though.
for like a week. But so I went and got this uphill one. A guy in Boulder had it. And then I think the Boulder guys like talked to Andy into going and taking it from me. And like I'd gone on like an easy 12-mile, 10-mile run with some friends on like this dirty Bismarck loop in the morning. Got home, took a nap, woke up to like what O's on my Strava. And it's like Andy Wackers taking your Lick Skillet mile. So I like text Amanda and I'm like, Amanda, you're driving me over to Lick Skillet. Like she was
We're
like,
going again.
I think she was at like a OB appointment and she's like, you're a psychopath. I'm like, yeah, I am. So went and like nabbed it back from him, but it like makes your lungs bleed.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And it finishes at like 9,000 feet. But a lot of them were just, Amanda had prescribed me a workout and I'm like, where's an FKT within an hour? And then some of it, like I said, my favorite thing about trail running is seeing new places. Mm-hmm. So we have a van and we're going on a trip and it's like, oh, there's an FKT there. Like that can be my morning run. So a lot of them are like soft times. Like people could go crush them, but I'm like, that just sounds like a really pretty trail. And I love climbing mountains and getting to the top of an area and you can see everything. So the main motivation was just to like see places.
Yeah, absolutely. And one that I really liked that you did was on the Nepali coast in Kauai. So that was where our honeymoon spot was.
That's awesome.
And it's absolutely gorgeous. We tried to hike Kalalau Trail. I don't know how you say it exactly, but we hiked on it a couple. I think we just attempted one time, but we got permits basically for the week, and it was just raining nonstop every day. And so we ended up just calling it because we got to the point where you cross the water, and it was just rising as we were going out already because it's just nonstop rain. So we didn't get to do the whole thing, but that is absolutely like the most gorgeous coast scenery in general. And so that's one that. Yeah, tell us a little bit about how that FKT went, and especially I know you did it with Amanda a few days before, kind of with Amanda, and struggled on that day, and then came back, rebounded pretty well to take the men's crown yourself.
Yeah, that was a journey. That was a experience. But Billy Yang, one of our good friends, he had kind of worked on this thing with Sufferfest where they wanted to do some stories and they ended up helping budget like a trip over there and he picked the FKT. I was going in kind of blind and then I like Google it and it's like Outside Magazine calls this one of the top 5 most dangerous trails in the world.
Yep.
I'm like, thanks, Billy. Like you just want this like dramatic film where I die.
Yeah.
But then we read about it and we're like, oh, odds are we're not gonna be able to do it because this river and all that stuff and all these permitting. But had great weather. And this was literally the first time Amanda and I had ever hung out on this trip. Like we get to LA.
Okay. Yeah.
We met at Bandera, Texas, didn't really hang out. Then we fly into LA, get dinner with Billy, go to a brewery, Monkish, one of my favorites, fly to Kauai, do like an easy run, then she's going to do it the next day. And it's like, looks like it's good weather.
Yeah.
Let's go. And of course, in my stowaway bag, I pack a whole bunch of Monkish and drink like 3 or 4 the night before. I'm going on this like arduous run with her. And I had a bladder and like a handheld. She had a handheld. We didn't have nearly enough water. So I like saved all my water, gave her all my water.
Yeah.
Got to the 11-mile turnaround. And I've never been cramping like that in my life. I like couldn't take a step.
Yeah.
And I'd sweat so profusely that I was like, go ahead. And I just like laid down on a rock. And I like didn't think I was going to get out. There's like some helicopter pickup spots.
Right.
So I was like, if you feel up to it, like come back. And she's like, no, I'm staying with you. And I'm like, dude, I'm not like ruining your FKT because I like didn't drink enough water.
Right.
But she ended up, which I ended up doing too, but just like dunking her handheld in streams because it's all relatively clean water because she was bonking hard and so dehydrated. But I woke up from my nap, probably like 15 minutes, projectile vomited and like couldn't move. So I was just like laying there. And I was like, well, like this would be a beautiful place to die. Like dramatic. You're just dramatic.
Of course, yeah.
And I like open my eyes and there's literally an orange tree right in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's incredible. So I like have my hand held like one of these bottles and I'm chucking it at the oranges,
To get 'em to
knocking them
drop?
down
Yeah.
and eating them. Oh, that literally like saved me.
Sugar and water.
Yeah. But I like hiked out. I think it took me like 8 hours. And they were like, neither of them came. Amanda felt so miserable after.
Yeah.
And Billy, bless his heart, he's just a bum. He wasn't going to come search for me. So I get done with this horrible experience and he's like, so you're still going to do it, right? In 2 days. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm just like praying for like torrential downpours so I can't do it. And it rained really hard that night.
Yeah.
And got like washed out that day, but the water was low enough to cross the next day when I was going to do it. So it was like muddy and soupy, but one of those weird runs where you feel great the whole way.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I was on Crawler's Ledge and there were a whole bunch of whales right down in the water.
So cool. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this day is meant to be. And at 11 miles, there's this beautiful waterfall that just comes down sheer rock. And you're just like so hot and thirsty. You're just like drowning yourself in it. But it was great. And like it was like very rapid and fast, but I totally like fell in love with Amanda that trip. And it's been like, there's obviously always sprinkled in sadness and I miss Gabriel dearly, but my life's been so much happier and better since meeting her that I like, we'll probably do our honeymoon there too. Yeah. Drag each other around the Kalalau one more time.
It's a great spot. Yeah. And chalk up that run with her where she's at the FKT as, you're just scouting the route a little bit and dropping from 8 hours that time to sub 4 the next time, doing it like 3:40 or whatever. So
it was fun.
That's awesome. So going into this 100K race here, and it's like 20,000 feet of vert, I was looking at the course map of it because I heard of UTMB races and was looking at the map. I was just like, man, that's got to be the most scenic thing ever because I've been in the Swiss Alps for a few days and that's it in my life. But it's like the most gorgeous place I've ever been. So I can only imagine like running around Mont Blanc and like the different countries that you're passing through and all of that is going to be amazing. So is this I guess partly, you kind of talked about it a little bit already. The goals for this race really to have fun with it and just kind of see what you can do. But is this your first time over there? And what do you have any other specific goals or placings or anything that you're trying to accomplish? Yeah,
this is first trip to UTMB itself. Been over to Europe a couple of times. Actually, right after Gabriel passed, I kind of actually went to Aspen for a little while and then bolted to Europe. Monaco has a big track race there, and they dedicated their women's mile to her. So it was like the Gabriel Grunewald Brave Like Gabe mile, and Safana San set the world record.
I remember
that.
I
got like a front stage seat there, but I extended that trip and actually ran my first mountain race ever in Austria.
Okay.
This beautiful town called Ischgl. It was a mountain marathon, and you basically run straight up like 3,300 meters and straight down. So you like peek out this mountain it's in the Silverton range and then down the other side. So not knowing at all what I was getting into.
That's nuts. Yeah.
I'm a good climber. So I was like, if I can put like 20 minutes on everyone by the descent, they're all way better European descenders. So I just bombed up it and ate it hard twice on the way down. I actually dislocated my thumb on the way down.
Oh, no.
But I won narrowly because they're all like just chasing on the descent.
Right.
But it was a great, fun experience. And the town, like everyone was so warm and welcoming. It's just like classic European mountain race.
Right.
So that was my first. But CCC, I mean, I say I want to be top 20. I secretly want to win. Like,
of course.
I look at the list. Like, I don't even think I made the iRun Fire list, which it'll be news to them if they find me on the podium.
Yeah, nothing wrong with an underdog story.
So there's no one on that list that I can't beat. Like, there's a few European variables that I'm like, that guy has some accolades. But the Americans there's some good Americans in it, and a lot of them are coming off Western states. And 100 miles does a lot of damage to the legs, so I'll be coming in a lot fresher. And the biggest part is I just want to have fun out there. Of course, like, if I won, I'd be stoked. If I got 20th place, I'd be stoked. For like sponsors and that stuff, I want to win because they support me They help us get over there. Like, they deserve it for giving that support.
Right.
But myself, like, selfishly, I'm just happy to be there. And I'm not like just going through the motions. Like, I'm going to give it hell.
Oh yeah.
But I'll be in a good place either way.
Right. And part of giving it hell is to be smart and patient during the race too. It's a long race.
Right.
So does this lead then, are you looking forward of like, I want to do even longer races like 100 mile or 200 mile? Is that on your radar? Are you, I don't know, sticking in maybe the 100K distance, 50K distance? Where is your head at like longer term?
I think like from a comfort and talent standpoint, 50K is like a great distance for me because I can grind, but from like a experience standpoint, it's definitely 100 mile. Like,
yeah.
I'll go after a golden ticket race again. I think we've already pegged Tarawara in New Zealand. That just got it. It was super weird. Like a week ago, I'm like, Amanda, I'm going to run Tarawara. And then like the next day they announced it was a golden ticket race. So blindly, but we had just had this long conversation that this was going to be her year for Western.
Yeah.
And I was going to do Leadville.
Okay.
But then like, it's like Western is forcing me to want to run it by like doing that. And I'll run Western State, but the only way I'm going to run it is via a golden ticket. And they get more competitive each year.
Yeah.
But it doesn't deter me any.
Right. And so Amanda's your coach? Kind of, or
I consider her
my
my coach. I technically, she'll say, not, it sounds horrible. I like fired her on Mother's Day.
What? Come on.
So I went to, that was when I like realized I was just like doing things for the wrong reason. I went out to American River, this 50-mile race. It's iconic. I got to 25 miles and took a wrong turn.
Okay.
Like I was feeling great. And like a lead at 25 miles means nothing, but I think I had like a 5 to 8 minute lead. I got to this point where they were supposed to flip an arrow around, and the person that was driving to that arrow got in a car accident. So the arrow wasn't flipped. So I just followed it to the left where it said, but I was supposed to go right. So went up this long climb for 3 miles. All of a sudden the race director's screaming at me from her SUV. And I was like way back into like 8th place because no one else missed the turn, and ran like hell, made it up into 3rd place, but skipped aid stations, and you can't do that. Like if I kept my cool, I could have still won, but I just blew a gasket.
Right.
And she told me 100% appropriately, if you would have kept your cool, you would have won. Like those guys walked it in. You could have like jogged and won.
Right.
But I was like, I don't want to hear that right now. Like, and then I was like, I don't ever want to be like mad at you for my shortcomings in running and my mistakes. So like, I love you. Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to ever get between that. So we should I'll just do my own thing and jog around for a while. Cause I also don't want to waste your time. Like she puts a lot of effort and time into coaching. She coaches like 10 people. And every night she's on her computer for an hour looking at all their training peak stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not performing well enough for you to even coach me. Like I can't afford you. So I'm just going to go jog around the mountains until I find happiness.
Yeah. Just go hammer an FKT every few days and call it a workout. Right. That's the way to do it.
Exactly.
I've actually always kind of wondered that, because especially watching the Olympics, it kind of renewed that. Like for me, realizing that so many athletes are coached by a spouse or a parent or whatever. Yeah. And I've always wondered what that dynamic is like of like, I'm your coach right now. I need to be hard on you, but then I'm like your partner an hour later and I need to say, hey, let's go have a beer. Right. It's like I don't know. It's an interesting balance, but.
And I asked her, I'm like, will you coach me again? And she's like, no. I'm like, it's probably good. She doesn't coach me, but she does by like, we run together once or twice a week. Yeah. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm going to go run 30 miles. She's like, yeah, that sounds good. Or else she's like, you're a moron. Like you're running a 60K in a day. Right. So does she coach herself then? Yeah. She does. Okay. Yeah. That's like literally after Bandera, I'm like, Amanda Basham, like seems like a rock star and like a really good person. Mm-hmm. So Mario Fraioli coached me for a couple of years. Yeah, I know Mario. Who I love dearly. And I didn't fire him for any coaching shortcomings, but I was like, Mario, like when Gabriel passed away, you came and like lived with me for a week. And it was the same scenario with Amanda. I'm like, I don't want to like have a bad race and be like, screw off. Like, and like, you're just too valuable for me that like coaching, it's not easy. Like,
of course,
they're all like do phenomenal jobs, but like to coach trail running is incredibly hard. Like, how are you going to tell someone to go get 2,000 feet of vert out here? Like, you could go on one trail and you might get 2,000 feet in 2 miles.
Exactly. It's like, especially like a remote coach, it's like impossible because every day is weather dependent. It's what you have access to dependent as well. So
and with my life, you throw in like a 90-hour work week every third week. Like, how do you coach that?
Easy running that week and then kill yourself the next 2 weeks. Just hammer it.
So, and I just saw her accolades. I was like 4th at Western States, 2nd at CCC, like all these races I want to run and do well at. So I texted her and I'm like, who coaches you? And she's like, I do. And I half thought like David Roche was going to be her coach or someone. And I'm like, oh, you do. Do you want to coach me? She's like, let me think about it.
It seems to be working pretty well for her so far. I mean,
and she was a great coach for me too. Like, I'm in the best shape of my life. But she just, she knows stuff and she's lived through it.
Exactly. So how does the then fatherhood and motherhood dynamic play into it? It seems like she's bounced back really quickly, back into running, back into training, running the Speed Goat 50K. So how have you both handled having a child?
I mean, it's been like amazingly great. Like it doesn't make training easier. It doesn't like allow you to go spend 12 hours in the mountains, but the happiness level that it gives me on a daily basis is worth way more than like getting lost in the mountain for 12 hours. Right. And I always feel like I have to play catch up because I'm gone for a week and she works her butt off. Like, momming ain't easy. Like, dadding isn't easy either. So like, I try to like take Rylan for a good 7 straight nights, or however much she'll let me. She's also very stubborn. So she's like, no, every other night. And I'm like, dude, you just took 7 nights. Let me make it up and then we'll go every other. But she does 80% of the parenting. And I think it's probably been good because she's also crazy. Like, the day after she gave birth, she's like, I'll go for a 30-mile run. And I'm like, your like uterus is going to fall out. She's not that crazy, but she pushes it, but she listened to her body like really well. She's like, someone feels weird in my lower abdomen, I'm going to take a few days off.
Right.
And I think being open with your life, I think is both useful, but it's hard because you'll be getting like all these opinions. People are like, you can't be running that. Like and it's like, I'm listening to my doctor. I'm listening to my body.
Exactly.
Like, that's your opinion. Like, you're not me and you haven't studied my physiology or anatomy.
Right.
Like, maybe I'm going to a pelvic floor therapist. Maybe I'm doing this. But just like, so many people are so fast to like tell you what you can and can't do. So I think that was a little hard on her just because that's hard on anyone. And like, that's the hardness about being in a social media world.
It is.
But she's been a champion and she's a great mom. And
it's great to see. Yeah, great to see her back grinding. So is she racing as well?
She's not. She's going to get in a nice long day in the mountains. It just so happened we were both going to do long at Speed Goat, and then we'd just be training through. But coming off work and having the kid variable, she went long at Speed Goat. I went a little shorter, and then just picked this up. Altra is, I think, the premier sponsor of this race. So, like, I feel like I owe them tons. So I'm like, I'm happy to come race and try to win and rep the brand. So it's weird. You like, I'm a physician, so I don't necessarily need to be a professional runner, but it's very nice to like have the support of a company, and you grow this community with the company, and I just want to like represent them and do well. And like Rabbit, Jill and Monica, the owners, they're so supportive, and they're like, we don't care how you do. Like, we just want you to enjoy it, which means so much. So just trying to do good for them.
Yeah, it seems, at least from my perspective, it seems like the ultra community and like sponsors in general, it's a lot more laid back, more community based, versus it seems very cutthroat on the track. Based on everyone that we've had on this podcast, it is very like pressure driven each year to race a certain number of times, hit certain places, hit certain time, times on the track, et cetera. So would you say that as well from your perspective? It is like more like ultra running, I guess both the community of like at the races, communities more laid back, more supportive of each other, but then also sponsors too. Does it seem like that's the case?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't want to like hate on any brands or throw anyone under the bus,
Right,
but
of course.
there are specific heavy track brands. I've some really good, like Gabriel ran the track circuit forever. I have great friends like running the Olympics, running the US championships, and a lot of them got a lot of nice hefty reduction clauses.
Exactly.
Which some brands have gotten away from that. Like Brooks was wonderful to Gabriel throughout. Contracts change over time, like leadership changes over time. A lot of companies want you to race, and if you don't race, they want you to fill in with events and things like that, which I'd say are way harder than a race. But it's very brand based, and Altra is a very like hearty family brand, and I think there's a lot of those. Like seeing what Adidas has done, like watching their whole crew in Chamonix already, and I think North Face, like a lot of these brands are really community based and inspired, and I'm super grateful to Altra because they want to like share Amanda and my story and support us. And like the biggest thing is like you make a shoe, like just make a good shoe. And I think Altra does that. Like my feet have never been happier, and I've toyed around with so many trail shoes because I was free to wear whatever I wanted. And at the end of the day, to be sponsored by someone, if you can't run in their shoe, there's no point in being sponsored.
Exactly.
So
so for the shoe nerds out there, what shoe are you going to be racing in?
So tomorrow I'll do the Lone Peak. I think it's the 5th rendition. It's super cozy and has my biggest issue with a lot of trail shoes is like rock plate.
Right.
Silverton, the San Juans, lots of jagged rocks. I actually wore a little too thin of if like the Superior is like more of a minimalist Ultra shoe, and if you wear that on some sharp rock, granted there's a rock plate insert, which I didn't have in, so it's my own stupidity, but that kind of beat my feet up. So the Lone Peak has really made my feet feel great. So I'll probably do those at CCC too.
Excellent. I've actually been rotating, trying a bunch of different, because this is my first summer doing trail stuff, and the Tim 2s I've actually just been loving.
I love those too.
I do have a more, I don't know, I grew up like, my parents just let me roam barefoot and all that sort of stuff. So I think I have a little bit wider foot. And so in Ultra in general, but specifically the Tim 2s just feel like super, I've never blistered being in them for 8 hours. They feel amazing. And so I don't know, I'm debating, if you were to recommend a shoe for me to wear for Pikes Peak,
Tim 2 would be great.
The Timp is a good go-to for that.
2.
I guess there's a 3 out now as well.
The 2's better.
2? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like hate on the 3 or say anything bad, but there's just been a little, they changed a few things with the 3. I'm like trying to stockpile the 2.
Okay.
Because that's, I don't want, like, again, with the brand stuff, the Lone Peak, I love the Tim 2. Like, so part of me wants to run in that at CCC. But I should run in like the newest shoe. And the Lone Peak is very comfortable and cruisy. Like, if you haven't tried that, you could totally you could try that there too.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how. There is like some technical terrain on Pikes. It's not as rocky. It's a lot more dirt, but some of the rocky stuff, the Lone Peak is really nice on.
Okay. Yeah, there'll be a couple sections for sure. So, okay, let's have a little fun. Predict my Pikes Peak Marathon time. Okay, I'll give you some like metrics maybe to go off of here. So, I've never done a trail race, but I will say I was not bad at cross country growing up. So I feel like I'm pretty good on the downhills. This summer specifically, Chicago for the last 6 years, 0 elevation gain. But this summer, I'm probably averaging 20 to 30K a week and maybe running like 40 miles, hiking 50 miles a week, I would say, give or take.
That's good.
And road marathon PR is 224. So what do we think? Like winning time is usually like 3:30 plus or minus 5 minutes, give or take, I have no idea what I should even be expecting on this. But yeah, curious if you have any sort of prediction.
How much technical descending have you done?
I think that might actually be my forte. I think I'm a better descender than climber. I'm pretty, careless, I guess you could say. I'm not afraid to fall a few times on the way down.
I mean, if you can descend on that course, the climb is like, if Joe Gray shows up, it is what it is.
Like, I know Seth DeMore is going to be there. He's going to on the ascent. I mean, it's like, can I stay within 20 minutes of him? 30, you know what I mean? I don't even know what the
and
number is.
He's a decent descender, but yeah. I mean, that, right. I think definitely breaking 4.
That's okay.
I mean,
that's kind of what my goal actually was shooting for that 4-ish hour.
And that's
mark.
A really good time. But if you can get to the top and have legs, because like, you can screw your descent.
Of course, yeah.
Like if you're jello-legged at the top.
Yeah.
And from my own experience doing like stupid ascent descent FKTs, try to get calories on the way up.
Okay.
Like it's way harder to eat, in my opinion, climbing, just because your heart rate's higher, you're breathing harder.
Yep.
But if you can get in, even, I don't know, like I love this like stupid spring awesome sauce. They're like, it tastes like apple pie, but it's 180 calories. Like if you could get that in, one halfway up and like one at the top, I feel like you'd be golden for the whole way or something. And it all depends on how many calories you like to take in, but you could definitely break 4. And if you can descend hard, you could break 350 and get, I mean, if you can run 224, not everything's perfectly carryoverable. And I feel like I'm a road guy that just like keeps slamming my head against the wall. But if you look at Jim Walmsley's career, he's phenomenal, like incredible. But his first few races weren't beautiful.
Yeah.
And just don't be deterred if it, like, you can also, being a careless descender, break your collarbone on the way. I don't knock on wood, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But they're like, careless descending's super fun.
Yeah.
And scary and crazy.
Yep.
But if you can run 224, you can do some damage on that course. If you can, it's coming up in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's like 2.5, actually just over 2 weeks now. It's like 2 weekends from Sunday, or 2 weeks from Sunday. Yeah.
If I talked to you 3 weeks ago, I'd tell you to just drive up there and like take the thing, drive up and just bomb down
it, yeah.
Just for just because descending too is an experience thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have Green Mountain in Boulder, which is very technical descending. But every time I go down it, I'm 30 seconds faster because my muscle memory, like just someone who played ball sports, like I know exactly where to put my foot on that rock and I know what's coming next.
Yep.
And like some guys can run down that with their eyes shut.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that's probably the one thing I didn't do as well as like, if I were really trying to maximize this, it would be like seeing the course more. I've done Pikes Peak maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. So I've like seen it, but
it's good that you've seen it though.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I kind of know what to expect, but
at 20 miles, there's this super funky rock that you want to be in control. Otherwise you might just eat it.
Exactly. And I've definitely my biggest thing that I hope doesn't happen in the race is like every time I try to go super hard on an ascent descent, I've done a couple, I tried to see if I could beat Seth DeMore's FKT on Mount Bierstadt on the ascent. And I was like, 6 minutes behind him.
Okay.
But then on the descent, it's like, I was so tired that I just start tripping over things that I normally wouldn't trip over and fell a couple times. And I was like, I think that's really got to like
brain
focus.
Glycogen,
get the calories on the way up and then focus on the way down is big. So
I've gotten to the top where I like can't see straight because I went so hard, and then I just like end up sitting up there for half an hour.
That could very well happen too. Who knows? It'll be fun. I'm excited for it, and I don't know. It's kind of nice to go into a race with no expectations. I guess just like let's see what we can do. You know? Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about you being the chair of Brave Like Gabe Foundation. So how. It looks like you have a quite a big team working with the Brave Like Gabe Foundation now. So maybe tell us. Let's start. How about this? Let's start with the origin story to some extent. So how did this idea come about, and then maybe tell the listeners that haven't heard about the story of meeting Chip Gaines as well in Central Park.
Yeah. So kind of long, medium story, as short as I can make it. Gabrielle Grunewald, my wife, had a rare cancer, adenoid cystic carcinoma. She was diagnosed in 2009, I believe. But we were both in college at the University of Minnesota. She Googled it. We both Googled it. You should never Google things, although the doctors weren't a ton more helpful because there was just no data on it. But there were 0 clinical trials, 0 approved treatments, zero anything for this cancer. And 5-year survival looked good, 10-year survival didn't look good. She ran professionally, was a world beater, 10th fastest American at the time when she left the sport. But later in life, after the 2016 trials, probably she had this big tumor in her liver, then started some chemo, then a clinical trial. And when she was doing her clinical trial, she's still running, getting fitter, getting faster, crushing workouts. But she's like, it's just not for sure sustainable. So I want to find something else. So she decided to start the Brave Like Gabe Foundation. And whether you believe in whatever you believe in, things happening by chance or things happening.
Serendipity. Yeah.
But we're in New York. She's on a clinical trial. She had just ended the clinical trial, meaning like her tumors were still growing on this dual immunotherapy treatment, which we'd go there every other week for 6 months. It was like very taxing. I was in residency or had just finished residency. I don't even know the exact timeline, but I was starting to kind of train for ultras because she was like, you should run more. And I'm like, okay. So Central Park is this 10K loop essentially. So I go out, do my first 10K loop, then I'm going to grab her, do our 10K loop together. She was just having an easy day. Finishing my loop, I'm at the corner by where we stay, and there's this guy sitting on a bench, and he yells at me. He's like, you look fast. And I'm like, thanks, Central Park guy. Like, keep running. He's like, how long would it take a fat ass like me to run a marathon? And I'm like, do you mean like years or minutes or he's like, how long to train? And he claims I just like raised 4 fingers and ran away, but I'm like 4 months. Like I think anyone that's capable could probably train for a marathon in 4 months. So I grabbed Gabrielle. She's waiting for her watch to get satellites. We're standing there and this guy yells at me again. He's like, hey, it's the fast guy again. I'm like, oh my gosh, this like guy in cowboy boots and a suit. And she's like, Chip. And I'm like, oh, like literally in my head, I'm like, he's a fan of yours or he like follows you on Instagram. So he's like toying with me. She's like, you know, Chip, like I make you watch HGTV, Fixer Upper. And I'm like, that's like when I'm like having a beer after we're completely zoned out. But he talks, he's like, it's an incredible scar. We take a picture together. She Instagrams it. He like follows her, reads her story. And he's like, I asked your husband like how long for me to run a marathon. I want to run a marathon. I want you to coach me. I want to put on a marathon in Waco and I want to give you all the money.
That's insane.
And she's like, wow. Like, and then that was the bigger version of the Kickstarter to get Brave Like Gabe Foundation going. He handed her, I think, a jumbo check with $250,000 to the Brave Like Gabe Foundation. It's a very nice seed funding. At that time, I was obviously a supporter of the foundation, but her friend Emily and Sam, they were like the president, the vice president, and the secretary or whatever. Yeah. But they got all the 501c3 paperwork, all that. So they volunteered their time for however much time Gabriel had left, put on a couple 5Ks, kept raising money. Yeah. She passed. They asked me to be the chair. So then it was myself, Sam, and Emily, and they're both incredible people. We both, like, obviously the foundation, which it's great that like people are reactive to this like super healthy, beautiful, phenomenal person passing away young, because I think it makes it real for everyone else. Right. But the day she passed, Chip said whatever got raised, he was gonna like match it to St. Jude's and match it to the foundation, and like he ended up like matching like $1.5 million to each. Like which what a hell of a send off to heaven. Seriously. So it's kept going. We've hired an executive director, which is amazing. Alicia's phenomenal. So we have one paid staff, and then we've expanded our board kind of to touch on areas like marketing and like, I don't know what my contributions are always other than like, I know Gabriel's voice and I do know medicine. Yeah. And I know like I've learned a ton about nonprofit and being the chair of a nonprofit. So I guess now I feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. But if you ask me like right after she passed, it's like, I'm the chair of a foundation. Yeah, exactly. You grow into it, you learn, you read like being a chair written for dummies. Whatever.
Right. So what was Chip doing in Central Park that day where he was just chilling? Was he like there for a business meeting, or what was he doing?
He was at this like weird crux in his life where he and Joe was with him actually, because Gabriel, I ended up adding on again, and Gabriel popped back through and Joe was there. But they announced they were ending Fixer Upper that weekend. So he's like looking for his next thing. Which was a marathon. And he was releasing Capital Gains, his book.
Yep.
But in life, it's not like he's like the nicest, most genuine human you could ever have in your corner. Like when Gabriel was sick in the hospital, he and Joe came to the hospital. Like when any weird anniversary comes up, he'll text me something incredibly heartfelt. Like and it's just weird. Like he's a friend. Like I've never looked at him as a celebrity.
Right.
It's like nice because if he like tweets something about the foundation, $10,000 gets donated in a minute because he has such a big following. But he does everything very genuinely. And I don't know many celebrities or any celebrities. He's just a guy that puts his pants on one leg at a time and is a really good dad from what I know and a really kind human.
I think that's what makes him such a good celebrity is that he is so relatable, and the family and their show and everything. It's like you can connect with them. They're just like the family down the street, you know? That's super cool. So for the foundation, you have the like ongoing the 5K as well. That's in
September.
End of September. Yeah. So is that seems like it's a huge race now. It's growing for sure.
Yeah, our virtual reach is incredibly impressive, phenomenal. Like the craziest thing was when you like lose someone or you like when Gabriel passed away, it's kind of like this blank, empty. It's like I entered like this black hole, but every like major publication in the world, like she was in the newspaper in India and like Melbourne, Australia, and like all of it, you never like would realize or think that would happen.
Right.
But that really, I think, expanded whatever the Instagram reach. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of her mission and a lot of her sayings, like our slogan of running on hope or her quote of like, it's okay to struggle, it's not okay to give up. Like those can resonate whether you have a bad day, whether you have a rare cancer, a non-rare cancer, depression, anxiety, just anything going on in your life. So we've been very lucky to resonate with a lot of people. I think there's always work to do, and I don't ever want to like not be a part of it. Like it's a huge part of my life. Yeah. But it is also all consuming. Like it could be something that's 24/7. So I've tried to push things on the back burner, but I still want to like really expand and push the voice. Like I think with Rabbit, we're going to make like a little Brave Like Gabe collab based on one of our quotes and things like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, the 5K September 25th, we have a local in-person race, and like our virtual race in the COVID year, we had like well over 2,000 participants. And that's the only thing we do that goes 100% to adenoid cystic carcinoma, her cancer. And then we write like $100,000 grants here and there to rare cancer research or institutions doing rare cancer research. And then Brooks has put out apparel and shoes for the foundation where that funds a fellow that's researching rare cancer. Yeah. And like to fund that fellow for a whole year, like she could cure like a leukemia or like, huge. So it's all really cool. And there's a million foundations, a million reasons to give money. Just find something you're passionate about or believe in, or find someone that sells a cool slogan like running on hope. Of course. And wear a shirt. Of course. There's nothing, running on hope to me is like, it's not that we're running. It's like your car runs on gas. Like we're fueled by hope. Exactly. Yeah, it's running related, or you can take it as not running related as well. No, totally. So what is your role then in like the selection of where the funds get allocated to? Do you play a big role in that, or is it? As the chair, we vote as a board. We do have committees, so I'm not in charge of, but a big part of our like rare cancer research committee, and I think there's 4 or 5 of us in there, and the committee, when you have money, like you can talk to any hospital, like everyone needs money.
Of course, yeah.
So we've done work with like Sloan Kettering. We've done work with University of Minnesota. Like there's a lab there, and essentially it's all a work in progress. But what would be ideal is if we got sent these proposals, and then our rare cancer research group, which we will also have a scientific board that helps weigh in, because not that you want to go for like the lowest hanging, you want to make the dollars most meaningful or impactful.
Yeah.
But we'll pick maybe a grant and be like, this guy is having huge breakthroughs on this rare cancer, like sarcoma research. And then we'll present that to the board, and it's like, should we write $100,000 grant to this? And then we'll have stipulations. Like, we don't want it to go to like hospital overhead fees. We don't want it to go. Like, we want this money to go to, like, if it's bench research, to bench research.
Right.
If it's like a clinical trial, it's a clinical trial. So you learn all that stuff when you work with the foundation.
Yeah, your profession certainly helps in you making those decisions. Yeah,
definitely.
That's awesome to hear. How about, let's do this to close out a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun here. So one thing that we always do at the end of Beer Mile podcast, we review the beer that we're drinking. Usually it's my co-host Adam and I, we're reviewing whatever beer that we have on the table, but let's get a guest involved here. So we have this Mexican lager, and it's spelled like lager as in, cutting down trees, Mexican style lager here. So usually we rate these things on taste, drinkability, and then whatever your X factor is for this beer. So according to your Rabbit profile, you're a self-proclaimed beer expert, which I want to hear about that too. But first, tell me what you think of this Mexican lager, and compared to other Mexican lagers that you've had, as well as just compared to beers in general. Yeah,
in reality, I haven't had a ton of Mexican lagers. I've been drinking a lot more lagers and pilsners recently. I brought you a beer stat as well. It's up. I didn't want to carry it in here.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay. Thank you.
But this is very good, very drinkable, very crushable. I think the big hip beer drinker phrase is like its crispness as a pilsner and lager. I guess it's probably not the most crisp, but I don't know if Mexican style lager is. And yeah, I don't know what the nuances of a Mexican lager are. That's kind of why I grabbed it. It tastes a little more, I don't know if it's like almost salty or what it tastes like, but Ska is in Durango. Amanda and I spent a few nights in Durango in the van and had some other stuff there. But the only thing I can really dork out on is IPAs and hops.
Okay.
So I could you could probably blindfold me and give me an IPA and I could tell you what hops are in it.
Really?
That's wow. What I nerd out over.
That's hilarious because the listeners will know, so Adam and I, when we rate these beers, the one beer type that we typically stay away from to some extent is IPAs. And I think it's just because the hop flavor is not necessarily my favorite. So I stick to more the lighter IBU stuff. But so it's kind of funny that's your expertise field.
And it's been it's not even, it's just a nerdiness, super bitter hops. And it took a lot of time to, I guess, tolerate that. And
yeah.
When you're out running miles and trails, definitely a bitter hop that tries your mouth. You're like, oh, this is delightful after I just sweat out 5 gallons.
True.
So this is the perfect post race beer, I'd say.
So IPA, is that your favorite style of beer, would you say?
Yeah. In the winter in Minnesota, some barrel-aged stouts. But those are so boozy and give you the headache that goes alongside.
They're good for a few sips, and then it's it's
I need more friends, because if I open a bomber of that, it's I drank 3 ounces.
Yeah, bad. So what, if you had to give your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 breweries in the country that you've been to, if you can think of it off the top of your head, what would those be?
So number 1 is Knotted Root.
Okay.
It's in Nederland, Colorado.
Okay.
They make phenomenal stuff. They don't distribute much at all, but so they'll have a super crisp lager on, so anyone can drink it, but they really specialize in kind of push the boundaries of like the hazy IPA. But someone, if like you don't like bitter hops, you could find like a sweeter hop, or I bet you'd find a profile that's very drinkable. They know Amanda and I by name. I think we brought Rylan there when she was 3 days old.
Oh, wow.
Which is probably frowned upon. But she's like the brewery baby. She has a onesie and everything.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So they're phenomenal. And it's just a gem because I run up this dirt road and then hop on Magnolia and then I'm there from our place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second, I got to say Monkish because that's like Amanda and my first date. They're in Torrance, California. Billy Yang lives like down the street. And they've always been known for making great beer. Again, a place that doesn't distribute, so you have to show up there. But locally, Minneapolis, we have two places that I'd say duke it out. One called Barrel Theory and the other one called Black Stack. They both make phenomenal beer. All these places. So again, this is like a nerdism. If you don't distribute, you probably buy higher quality ingredients. And once you distribute, you probably downgrade your ingredients a little bit.
That makes sense. Yeah, intuitively. Yeah.
So those are probably around my 4. There's all sorts of other ones, but my pipe dream, or maybe sooner dream, is to open up a brewery in Boulder here in the next couple of years. But Amanda will not allow me to take on more work.
Yeah. So you got to drop something.
Yeah. Got to drop trail running, I guess.
So what do you have like in your mind? What the unique piece of your brewery would be? Because I mean, Colorado's like just, filled to the brim with breweries. So like, do you have in your mind, like, what's the differentiator for yours?
Yeah, I think kind of an inclusive vibe. And then there's this small like side brewery to a bigger brewery in Minnesota that is not for profit. So I think like finding things where 10% of profits, like in perpetuity, go like 9 months a year, they go to Brave Like Gabe, 3 months a year, they go to like what people come in, like bring into the brewery, and not just so much like a night you drink, like breweries do that all the time, like where you drink tonight and like 10%, exactly, but that's like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if you like had profits of like $1 million a year, like I want to be investing like hundreds of thousands of dollars in these things. And that's like my backdoor dream of how I just plug more funds into Brave Like Gabe without like having to try super hard. Because fundraising does get old. Like if my family and friends are so sick of me asking for money.
And that's why the like the 5K, like events are a good way to do it, because it's a natural thing and people don't, it's not like you're begging for money. It's like you're getting something for it too in return. So the brewery is like a perfect way to do that. Yeah.
And I have 2 brewers semi-headhunted that would be happy to end up, and they make 9 to 10 out of 10 beer, like phenomenal beer. I do think Boulder has a ton of breweries. They have a ton of mediocre breweries. Like I want like this Beer Stat place. Yeah. They make the best slow pour Pilsner in the world, like beer ad, like all the nerd websites tell you that. And like, I'm not a nuanced enough, like maybe if I grew up in Germany, I'd be able to tell you that. But I want that to be said about the brewery if I opened one. Yeah. Like I'm not willing to settle for mediocre. And a lot of breweries are. And I've talked to a lot of brewery owners and they're like, the beer sells, like why would I buy better ingredients? Like it would cut down on my profits.
Yeah, of course.
But you need to be profitable, but that's not my reason to get in the game. Yeah. Which it's a different perspective coming in.
I like that. So have you done home brewing at all? Small batch stuff yourself, or?
Just with like friends living in a small condo in Minneapolis. I think if I would have homebrewed with Gabrielle, she would have murdered me.
Yeah. The hard part that I've thought about home brewing. Yeah. I'm not super seriously, or like getting a kegerator, those kind of things. And I'm just like, but then I'll be drinking every night. And I don't know if that's the best thing to be doing if I'm running. So it's just, it's an extra temptation that I probably don't need in my life.
That's why I work nights, can't drink.
There you go.
Beer doesn't sound good in the morning.
Very true. Very true. And how about a beer mile? Have you done a beer mile?
No, but your time is friggin' impressive.
Do you think you would have a shot at like, how do you think you would stomach the beers? Would you be able to chug beer or not sure?
Oh, man, if you like date, I think I could, yeah, but I would just, I mean, it's something I'd have to train for. Yeah. I think all the carbonation, and bouncing in my stomach. Like I think, because like LaCroix or bubbly water is so bubbly, I feel like I'd have to like train with that.
Yeah.
And I've gotten so much better at chugging that.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if like running, like how fast is your quarter? Like what's your...
For me, like 4:12 for the mile roughly. So like 63s basically.
But like when you're, so it's bottle. So
bottle. They're like
chug?
5-ish, 6.
So yeah, like I wouldn't touch your time. I wouldn't want to. I'd love to, but I think the bottle perspective, I think you get more carbonation that way too. Just because it bubbles up, you know? Like whereas a can you can...
the can, at least from my experience, the can is slower for the fluid to come out.
Yep.
But yeah, the bottle definitely you risk, like when you just turn it vertical, it just makes foam, and then you like risk. A lot of people get DQ'd at the beer mile races because they have too much foam at the end. Yeah, so that's definitely a part of the game. But yeah, we're always on the hunt for our guests who would be the next big talent for the beer mile and join Team USA.
I think I could be a mediocre talent.
Mediocre talent. Okay, yeah. I mean that's still good. I'm surprised you've never done one though. I don't know. I guess maybe it wasn't as big of a thing.
I'm old. Yeah, I'm like. When I was in college,
not a ton
we were
older
doing
than
like
me,
Edward 40 hands or something stupid like that.
I did that too, but yeah, Edward 40 hands and icing people, you know,
exactly
common things.
Exactly.
Well, maybe you should give it a go sometime, but I don't know. At least just for the hell of it, for fun.
I can try it.
Last thing that I just remembered I wanted to ask you. So did Chip and Joanna like pimp out a van for you guys? And yeah. Give us the details on that.
Oh yeah. So there's a show on their new network, Magnolia Network or Discovery. They were on Discovery Plus forever. It's on Magnolia Network now, where they're building out this van. There's also a really cool show on Chip training for the marathon called Courage to Run. But with the Silo District Marathon, the big marathon he puts on, right pre-COVID. So I got the good end of the deal. Pre-COVID, Chip calls me and he says, I want to make Silo District the next Boston. Like, what do we need to do? Like, you're going to be our contact for elites. And I'm like, sure. Like, I know like Des Lind and I know these handful of phenomenal marathoners that could medal at an Olympics or win a Boston Marathon, and they'd all be happy to do it, but they have to like fit into their schedule and all that. And so I started building this group. But after we got the phone, I'd had this idea for a while since Gabriel passed, not expecting to have a kid and another partner so soon after. But I was like, just get off the grid, train in this van, disappear for a while. So I was like, I've had this crazy idea. And he's also, I knew they wanted content because they have a network coming out.
Yeah.
That's 24/7 of their stuff.
That's nuts.
So I'm like, I am going to buy a Sprinter van. Would you build it out? Like, people are loving this. I think people would love a show about it. He's like, you get the van down to Waco, we'll build it out and make a show out of it. And now they actually, Chewy Van, who helped him with the van, they have their own show on the network that's inspired by that van build out.
Wow.
Which is really cool. But he's so, I mean, Chip and Joanna are so nice. COVID delayed things a little bit, but he's like, the van's ready. Like, booked me a flight down because they're just generous and nice. I drove down, booked me a flight down months later. We're chatting, catching up, do the reveal, and it's just immaculate. I mean, it's way, like they really wanted, I kind of gave them a layout, but I'm like, I'm not a design, like you guys are going to do something way better than anything I can even dream up. Yep. So I let them like kind of do clean slate, and they just made this beautiful, super livable van. Now just got to get a baby seat drilled into the back.
You're good to go. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, van life is one that I've contemplated, you know, like not I don't know how seriously, but it just seems super cool. And a lot of our listeners too, that like the big name in track and field, Craig Ingalls right now, and that's his thing, is he like buys old RVs, renovates them, sells them. So it's like it's a hot market right now.
Oh, the
very hot market.
Chewy van, he's like probably booked out for 10 years.
It's nuts.
Like, and like to get a Sprinter van, and now like after COVID it's 10 times worse, but I had to like would have been like a 6-month back order, but I like dropped Chip's name to my like Mercedes dealer, and he's like, "Oh, we'll get you one ASAP."
Yeah.
Which was super nice of him. But he's like, him and his wife watch Chip and Joanne every night.
Of course,
so I'm like, of course, everyone in the world watches them, and I'm the idiot that like had no idea.
But it's like the celebrities next door. They're just another family doing their thing. So
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Justin, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know, if you anything that you want to leave our listeners with, well, in the description we'll have links to the bravelikegabe.org and for donating, for getting swag, all of that good stuff. Anything you want to leave our listeners with or plug?
Yeah, I mean, Brave Like Gabe Foundation, I personally think we do really good things. There's a million foundations you can donate to, and it doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can be retweeting, Instagram sharing. But all those things are important. And my biggest thing, I think, living through a very perfect and beautiful life, and then living through an incredible hardship, and now living in a perfect and beautiful life, but after loss. Like, just if people can, Amanda's tattoo on her leg is relentless forward progress. Like, if you can just keep moving forward in life, there's going to be really, really hard spots. And the foundation, it all goes hand in hand. Like, just don't give up, keep moving, and find something you believe in. If it's trail running, if it's beer miling, if it's bicycling or riding a horse, whatever. But find things you enjoy. Life's short, and live it the best you can.
Perfect advice. We'll be rooting for you in Chamonix. Best of luck.
Great.
Best of luck tomorrow. I guess by the time the listeners are hearing this, you've already completed the Silverton race. But best of luck in Chamonix, and we're rooting for you.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks.